Hello and welcome back to the Double Clutch NBA podcast. My name is Matthew Wellington and I'm joined tonight once again by Mike Miller.
Hey, good evening.
Looking all blue there.
Looking all blue, getting ready for the next lockdown.
Yeah, it's on its way. I'm a bit angel-like. This is really creeping me out. There's a lot of white going on. But yeah, anyway, we're trying to avoid a lockdown. We've got plenty of Nuggets Lakers reaction news to talk about, and obviously Celtics Heat. Before we get onto your Discord questions later on, just quickly before we move on to everything else, obviously since me and Mike did last week's show, the Los Angeles Clippers have been knocked out. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on the future for the Clippers? There's been a Shams article went up on the Athletic today, I think it was, where he basically said that there was a lot of discourse in the locker room, and that Paul George was telling players to, get a grip and we'll come back better next year. And they were all like, okay, this is a bit ironic coming from you, who's been really like out of it for these, this.
It's a difficult one because if I try and end them, obviously I'm just sort of getting them out. It's their first year together, things like that. But they had high expectations and they didn't quite deliver on them.
Yeah.
I mean, they were still in. Yes, they gave it away with several missed opportunities to close out the series. They were still only one game away from the Western Conference. Too bad a season. So I'm cool with it if they run it back. I definitely think that they need to improve some areas, but I think if their top two players were performing at their level, the level you should expect from them, then we'd be probably looking at a different conference finals.
Yeah, and the comparisons that have flung up between them and the Lakers and how the Lakers have been put together, they're a bit unfair, really, because LeBron's had a year with some of those guys, and then the others have come in and they're all veteran players, so they're just used to gelling. Whereas the Clippers have been picking up guys throughout the regular season and just adding it as they've gone on. But yeah, there's loads of interesting memes on the internet with Kawhi staring down Paul George while he's sitting behind him, and we're gonna get some great stuff coming out over the next few months over how the Clippers handled this bubble situation. But it's not normal at all, is it? As I'm sure we'll discuss later. But if you haven't done so already, please check out the Discord, discord.me/Double Clutch UK. Come and join us and join fellow NBA UK fans who are chatting on there regularly. A lot of NBA 2K talk again this week. A little more positive than it was last week, so that's a bonus. And obviously, please, if you are tuning in on the podcast, catch us next week, where we'll be on twitch.tv/Double Clutch. But if you're tuning in live at the moment, hello. Anyway, main topics. Nuggets and Lakers. Anthony Davis scored 22 points in the second half of last night's game to take the Lakers to a 2-0 series lead, including the game-winning three-pointer as time expired. Kirk's got some fancy video thing that he's trying out here, so I don't know how this is going to work. But basically, the final play was a complete screw up by, I think it was Miles Plumlee. But I'll let Mike debate on who's going to get the real blame for the errors in the Denver's defense at the end of the game.
I've got a bit of audio interference. It's really struggling for some reason. Has Matt dropped out? It looks like it. All I can see is Kurt
still here, I
on
think.
the screen now. Weird. We're having some technical difficulties today. So for me, the error is a communication error between. It's quite clear that the footage beforehand of Grant talking to Mason Plumlee saying, this is where you need to be, and pointing at a spot by LeBron's left foot, basically. And then for some reason, as Plumlee arrives at that spot, Grant doesn't cover out to AD. I don't know whose fault that is, whether one didn't hear the other or what, but it's a communication error between those two guys. Jokic does a good effort at recovering to try and get a hand up on the shot, chases it down well, but it goes in. Great shot from AD. But it's a fundamental communication error on that Nuggets defense in that one instance that's cost them the game.
Yeah, it's Jeremy Grant sort of standing there and pointing, saying, look, I need a bit of help on LeBron. But LeBron was 1 of 6 or something in the second half. He was just, he did all the damage in the first half of that game. and then left sort of the second half of the game to Anthony Davis to sort of close out. And at the end, you had this real contrast of, the bigs. You had Jokic going up against AD. A couple of plays before the game winner, Jokic had just backed down Anthony Davis in the paint, taking him all the way to the rim and hooked it up over him. And he made that look easy. And this is Anthony Davis who he's pushing out of the way here, and it just shows you how much Jokic has developed as a player this year. And I was listening to is it Andrew Sharp, who used to be on the Sports Illustrated podcast, and he was saying that after what the Nuggets have done, people are going to have to really start seriously considering Jokic in like the top 5 players in the league, because he's just developed this all round game. He's obviously got a killer mentality. And that the Nuggets must be killing themselves. And there's all kinds of stuff coming out today about Mike Malone saying that they were just totally devastated in that locker room after that game. And it's not surprising. I mean, the psychological impact of losing that game. I mean, what do you think how will that affect this series going forward? Do you think that was their best chance to really make this a series? Because the Lakers have looked like one of those teams that are just steamrolling through the playoffs at the moment. Like, they've lost a couple of game ones, but they're laser focused at the moment.
Yes, it was their best chance because it would have leveled the series, and it was down to a single play. And I don't think you get much of a better chance than that unless you're winning the game in the first place. But
they had to come from behind, didn't they?
Yeah, but that's what they do. And so to be devastated in a 1-point loss because you weren't able to come back again, because they were down by like 12 points or so before that. Like, there must be, I was trying to think about this earlier. Why do they keep going down by double digits and then having to claw back? What's wrong with the team that means that they let themselves get into this hole that they have to dig themselves out of? Because the pressure is on them to do that and to fix it, and you have to continually play under that pressure. You're not going to get it every single time. So why aren't they focusing on perhaps not getting down by as much, or in fact maybe even staying close or being in the lead? Like, to me, you're asking a lot of the team to continually come back from being down by so many. And it's just going to get harder and harder.
Well, we've seen in these playoffs, once you go down double digits, you really have to fight. And it was the same in the Celtics game the other night. Game 3, Miami went down big, and they were just struggling for the rest of the game trying to catch up. And that's a team that's got a lot more veteran experience than like the likes of Denver. But Denver is still here because of an unbelievable Game 6 by Paul Millsap. Like, he was dragging them, kicking and screaming through that. It was at Game 5, one or the other, and he was like dragging them through the mud. It's almost like they just have a lack of focus when they start these games. Or maybe it is the fact that LeBron James is so laser focused right now. Like, he thinks, if I come out for the first 2 quarters and absolutely, devastate them and give us a double digit, then I can let the younger guy, AD, take over at the end. And it is that ultimate 1-2 punch they've got at the moment, which is destroying teams. And we saw it in the regular season. Like, you can, one or the other, they can take nights off, and it isn't a problem for this Lakers side. The thing that's really annoying, I'd imagine, if you're a Nuggets fan, is just the fact that they're getting shots from everybody. Like, KCP hit a fadeaway 3 in to end one of the quarters, and you sit there thinking that should not go in, but it was going in. And Rajon Rondo was hitting like step back 3s. Like, they're players that shouldn't be doing this. And the Lakers are using all of their experience to really rile up this young Nuggets team. Like, you even see it on the bench. Like, the guys on the bench are sitting there and having to go at Jokic. They're yelling at the Denver roster, just trying to put them off. And in that bubble experience where there is no crowd, like, the Lakers have taken over from the celebs. So, like, instead of Jack Nicholson sitting there, you've got like Dwight Howard doing it, and Dwight's been really physical. Like, I wanted to talk about the mind games that he's been playing, and he's just playing on this sort of I'm the big tough guy look at the moment. Like, Game 1 just completely, dominated Jokic, and Game 2, in the limited minutes he was making it really difficult for him. Obviously, Jokic took over at the end of the game. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on Dwight Howard coming out and playing this, like, enforcer role?
I think he was that good at it, he wouldn't be in limited minutes. It's as simple as that. If you're like, you can come in and play hard, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But if you are an enforcer who's having a big impact, you'd be on the floor for longer, in my opinion.
Well, he's tried his best to get out there and wind people up, but Denver going 16 points down, it's never going to help, especially going up against such a savvy team like the Lakers. And for all the stick Rondo's had over the last however many months, like he's shown in his playoffs where his value lies, and he sort of ups his game. He becomes like playoff Rondo during the postseason, and it's
Playoff
something
Rondo's real.
playoff Rondo is real, and it's one of my
100%
probably
real.
one of my first real memories of watching the NBA. Like, must have been playoff Rondo in like 2008 during that campaign where the Celtics played the Magic, I think it was, and he stole the ball and laid it up at the other end, and that's like one of the more that's just etched in my brain from like a younger basketball perspective. So playoff Rondo is absolutely real, but you still don't expect him to be making threes like that, and you don't expect AD to be doing it either. I mean, what does he shoot 31% or something from three normally throughout his career, like, and to hit the biggest shot of the night over the top of Jokic. I mean, Jokic did the best he could possibly do to get over there and cover that because the coverage from Plumlee was just non-existent. So the fact that he managed to shift over there is impressive as it was, but obviously he was guarding the pass inbound. So it must be heartbreaking. It was just a complete communications error, and you'd imagine that they're going to be focusing purely on making sure they all know what they're doing if that happens next time.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they hadn't, then LeBron could. If the switch, I was trying to work it out whether it was supposed to be a delayed switch, because if Plumlee had arrived on the back foot of LeBron and Grant had jumped out to AD, immediately LeBron has a slip to the hoop and a layup. And so I almost feel like that's the better shot is still AD curling for a three. But again, the poor communication meant that there was a delayed rotation and ended up being bailed out by, well, almost bailed out by Jokic. It's a great shot from AD.
No, it's
the
unbelievable
slow-mo replay,
shot.
the hold on the form is beautiful. But the commentating team, terrible. Can't stand it. If they tell me one more time they used to play point guard in high school, I'm actually just going to bludgeon my head against my bookshelf.
But they like doing that now because they're so amazed by these modern bigs that can do everything. It's just totally, they can't comprehend that because back when they were playing, it just wasn't a thing.
Well, they're the X factors, aren't they? These guys. We mentioned it last week. The unicorns. These are the guys who can do just about everything on the floor as well or better than the positions that should be doing it. And it's why I'm so excited by how this is going to evolve the game going forwards. Because if you're a specialist role player, like a specialist big man, your contribution come playoff time is going to be vastly limited because you specialize in only one thing, and therefore you're a weakness on the other thing, like on the other end. So the amount of times we see the pick and roll offense just absolutely just go straight at the big man because they can't keep in front of the guard. So you have to be good enough to do that. You have to then be strong enough to go in the paint the other side, even though that's not where a lot of the basketball is played now for the big man. And you have to sit outside and be able to stroke the three at least a competent level, which is what these guys can do. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I think the Lakers have looked a lot better since AD started manning up and playing the five as well. I mean, we mentioned it the other week about getting that sort of Zebo attitude towards playing there, and he's obviously played there before in the past, but as a sort of signature moment, really, that's what we've all been waiting for from Anthony Davis. Like, we've been going on about it since he was drafted. He's the next, the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he's always had those almost moments. He's done well in the the postseason in the past in New Orleans, but he's always met his match. Whereas now he's had that moment and he's having a chance to take over. So you could argue that he's almost more important than LeBron James is at the moment because LeBron's getting to have a little bit of rest and getting to just sort of ease himself like a flat line through the playoffs at the moment, which is something he's never had to do. Like, if that game had been in the Eastern Conference and LeBron had been on a different team, you're 9 times out of 10, LeBron James is having to win that game for them. They wouldn't have had somebody like Anthony Davis do it for them. But the Nuggets didn't help themselves. I mean, 21 turnovers in the game, that led to 15 points for the Lakers. And the Lakers just dominated the boards again with 13 offensive rebounds and 16 second chance points. 9 of those went to Anthony Davis. Like, he was just out there doing everything. And that final play at the end was basically just it was a hustle play. Like, you had to want that to get the ball back after they had a couple of missed shots, I think it was. And then they grabbed the rebound and they had the chance to win the game from there. So it was, it was I think it was a signature moment for Anthony Davis and something that Lakers fans have probably been waiting for a long while.
A couple of things on that. One, you managed to get a Zebo reference in 2 weeks on the bounce. If Anthony Davis is going to channel, he's in a Zebo, he's going to need to channel some extra pounds, I think.
He needs to eat some burgers, yeah, absolutely.
And the second thing is, like, people are saying this is the signature moment for AD. I I'm not sure it is. Like, I get that this is a big moment, but this is a guy who he hit a buzzer beater versus OKC from half court. This is You're making me cast my mind back into cobwebs now, which basically secured New Orleans a playoff berth. And then in
Yeah.
that playoff series in the first round against the Warriors, he had like a 45 point, 20 rebound game, which won them again. And to me, that's a bigger deal, is leading the Pelicans to upset the greatest team of the last decade, and even if it was a single game, versus scoring a buzzer beater in the Western Conference Finals against a team that, yeah, perhaps, well, is this team, the Nuggets? They're not supposed to be here in terms of how good they are at the minute. They are better
No.
than everyone thought they'd be, but to me, the bigger obstacle there was, and the more of a signature moment, was taking a game and carrying the team on your back for the whole game, not just hitting the buzzer beater. But that's no disrespect to him, because it was a moment. Don't get me wrong. It's just not, in my mind, his signature moment.
I guess it's because, especially like myself growing up as a Lakers fan, you end up with, like, the Lakers have moments and players have their individual moments, and you can pinpoint usually one point in a player's career with the Lakers where they took that sort of step. And Ron Artest winning at the buzzer against Phoenix, like that was a moment where after that everyone
turning
suddenly
around after his 3-pointer. Sorry.
That's given us an all-time great gift, so nobody's complaining about that one. But, like, Derek Fisher against the Spurs and Horry, like there's moments that stand out, and obviously plenty of Kobe moments, so it's the first of what would hopefully be many for Anthony Davis. But yeah, the Lakers media was always going to jump on it, and you know what most of the Lakers fans like. I like to think I'm quite tepid or timid for a Lakers fan, so I don't tend to sit there and say we should be trading for everybody under the sun, because I don't believe it's don't believe that's right.
Get rid of Julius Randle as well, so
yeah,
so
but that's understandable. I mean, Julius Randle is the greatest power forward to be drafted in the last 2 decades, so why wouldn't I be disappointed?
Dear. I got asked today whether I thought AD was overrated or underrated. Or where would you sit on that?
I don't think he is overrated. Like, he's got to be. What is he, a top? We'll have this debate again about being top 5 and top 10, but he's got to be a top 5 player in the league. Like, you've got 2 top 5 players. The Lakers actually have 2 of the top 5 players left in the playoffs, like, without a shadow of a doubt.
Left in the playoffs, yeah, 100%. But in the league,
yeah, I think he's got to be up there. This is a guy who consistently gets you, especially at the moment. He's getting 30 and 19 a night or something stupid. Like, he's averaging throughout the playoffs. Like, I think he's right where he probably should be, but he needs those moments. It's like I was saying, he needs these moments, these knockdown, buzzer beating, game winning moments, and the championships to sort of back up the hype that has been built around him. But overrated and underrated is a strange conundrum in this league, I think.
I think he's underrated by a lot of, I hate to use the phrase casual fans, but people who have not, because they weren't aware of him in New Orleans, essentially. I think he's overrated by a significant proportion of Lakers fans, and I'm not including you in this, who seem to think he's just like the greatest Laker power forward of all time. Yeah. He's pushing top 5, but again, this is where we get into a complete sidetrack about who's in the top 5. But assuming everyone's at full health, you've already said LeBron, AD, and Jokic are top 5 talents, and we've not even talked about KD and Steph, who have missed a year with injuries and things like that. And it's like
the league's in a good place.
The league's in a great place, and AD is an excellent. I think depending on who you talk to, depends on whether they are under or overrate him. I think I rate him fine, which is.
Well, some people put him in the same category as KD because he's got that height and that size, but I think the one thing he lacks against KD is that shooting ability. KD's got a shooting ability that nobody else has. So
yeah, and AD's handle isn't anywhere near as good as KD's, but his defense is better. I wouldn't compare him to KD. I think a healthy KD, say what you want about his personality, on the floor, he's top 2. Yeah, possibly number 1.
I mean, on these Lakers quickly, do you generally think that they haven't had a challenge in these playoffs? Because, like, obviously everyone was expecting them to face the Clippers. I mean, even when they played Portland, it was a bit of a whimper moment, and I don't feel like we've seen them come up against anybody who's going to really challenge them. And I think that'll change when they make the NBA Finals, which they will make the NBA Finals. Boston or Miami they're going to run rings around them because they have coaches who will force them to do that. And I think then we will have to see what Anthony Davis and LeBron James are really made of.
I think Miami will provide the bigger challenge of the two.
Yeah,
just the personnel matchups. But I don't know. I feel like we're giving
saying
Denver
that, you
some
can't
disrespect.
underestimate a Celtics Lakers like that. Just
no,
levels it up a notch, I guess.
But will it though? Because it's not going to be. It's on neutral ground.
Yeah.
Home court's gone. It's none of these guys were really alive the last. Well, actually, they were because it was 10 years ago. But you know what I mean? Like the big Lakers Celtics rivalries. It's not necessarily part of their basketball heritage. I don't know. It hasn't. I feel like I get why people are going to pin it on that, but for me, it's like a different era. So you can say all you want about it, but it's a neutral site, and these guys probably don't have the personal vendettas and hatred for each other. There's not a guy on either team vying to be the best player, who's been crowned and anointed the best player in the league. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. I can't believe I stumbled on Larry Bird then. But I don't know. To me, personnel wise, it's the Heat.
We actually had a question on Discord which we were going to throw into our question section, but we're going to put into the relevant points of the discussion. Ginger Shack asked, "Is there any way back for the Denver Nuggets?" I mean, I just said the Lakers are going to the finals, so it's a Mike question. I think if they're going to get back in it, then they'll probably have to go 3-1 down again.
To be a pedant, the way back is to win 4 games, and there's still at least 5
they
left.
They were joking, weren't they, that they wanted to start the series at 3-1 because then they'd have a fairer chance.
3-1 down. Yeah, probably. I don't know, because this is the thing. That game was so close. The first game was a blowout, but this game was very close.
Yeah. You
yourself said how confident you were, and we'll get onto it in a minute. In the other series we're going to talk about, when it was 2-0, and then the minute it flipped to 2-1, you were like, "Oh." So is one game that big of a variable factor in this? But I don't think they will come back from it. I think they can take a couple of games, but I don't see it going to 7.
Yeah, game 2 is more than evidence that they can take a couple of games. Like, they had really good performances from Jeremy Grant. Paul Millsap was good. Jokic, despite the fact he was sort of manhandled by Dwight Howard for a large period, came through when it mattered most. And you got the performances from the guys that you needed to get. They just needed to pay attention at the end. And I understand why Plumlee's in there. Like, you're expecting the Lakers to probably go for AD and to try and get a layup to win the game, and not go for a crazy ass 3-pointer from 18 feet out. Like, I understand why he's there, but you might have been better off playing a smaller guy to just sort of keep up with him and just hang on to his jersey, basically.
We've had a question on Discord, not Discord. What an idiot! On Twitch.
On Twitch.
What percent from Nick Whitfield? Or I say Nick Whitfield. Can't even talk. NJW23. What percentage chance do you give Jamal Murray as retiring as the Canadian GOAT?
That's pretty high, surely. I don't know.
Steve Nash?
Well, Steve Nash, yeah, but he's got a good chance.
What do you mean, yeah, but? Nash.
What if Jamal Murray wins a championship?
Is he going to be the MVP of the championship winning team? Is he the best player on this team
probably
right now?
No. I'm just causing discourse.
No. Yeah.
I mean, Canada's got a roster. Canada's getting a roster at the moment. It's just, a shame Kelly Olynyk's not been really there for the Miami Heat, but
overrated.
Darren L also asked about how important is Anthony Davis in this series. Is he more important than LeBron James? I mean, we would just, I think LeBron's got a luxury at the moment. It's like having an extra Ferrari in the garage. Like, you can just leave one there and let the other one loose for a bit. I mean,
for all those people who casually have 2 Ferraris sat in their garage.
Yeah. I don't want to talk that ageist reference again, but it's like when you get to your 30s and everything stops working all of a sudden, and like you then just be like, oh, hang on, there's a 20-year-old there, we'll just use them. So, which I'm sure happens on basketball courts.
Hold on, where's this going?
I'm sure this happens on basketball courts all over the country. They just go, we'll just use the young lads, just throw them on there.
Is he the most important in the series? No. he will be the X factor in the same way that, and this isn't to discredit AD again, but in the same way that Michael Porter Jr. could be an X factor for the Nuggets, that's what AD is for this team. He is the one person who can actually beat Jokic in this sort of battle of the bigs, because he has all the sort of the versatility that was lacking from the Jazz and the Clippers in the previous rounds from their big men. He can actually make Jokic come out of his comfort zone. So I like that, but it's LeBron. LeBron, when it comes down to it and he needs to, he will still take over the series.
You mentioned Michael Porter Jr. I've been so impressed with him, just like stepping up at what this guy was born in 1998. Like he's 22 years old, I think, 23, 22. Like just first playoffs, like just not shunning away from the lights at all. Like just to get what you're getting from him each night. It's a real X factor for the Nuggets, and I think that's arguably the reason they've got this far. Is you have a guy coming in who nobody really knows how to guard, and he's living up to the hype, which is, you know, a great thing for Denver. And the Nuggets team going forward, like even if they lose this series, you know, they're stacked. And it seems like we've been talking about them for the last 5 years, actually. Like they just seem to have been one of those teams that's always there. And we've said before, like there were games in the regular season like 3 or 4 years ago where they just didn't look like they knew how to close out games. Hopefully this postseason experience will then, you know, reflect back on them next season and they'll start closing out games properly.
Yeah, we need to move on topics. We're getting Kirk's having a go at us. We're 26 minutes deep and we haven't got very long to discuss.
Kirk is a Lakers fan, so, you know.
Yeah, he's slandering you all over. Apparently,
oh, no, he just didn't.
Yeah, you're being slandered all over Twitch.
How dare he?
Lakers fanboy.
Okay,
next
moving
series.
on. Miami, Boston. Obviously, the Heat are still 2-1 up. Game 3 did go to the Celtics, and that's when I started going, oh, my Miami in 6 prediction's not looking too great now.
It's still looking.
It's still looking great. Yeah, but
you're 50% there.
I'm just worried that the X factor, which I mentioned last week, Gordon Hayward, has returned for the Boston Celtics, and that he was, you know, a stabilizing force for them, as Brad Stevens said the other night. I think he's making a difference for them out there. I mean, it's been a slow start from the Miami Heat for the 3 games. Like I think if they actually just start games better, then this series might be over quicker than we think it is, like possibly 5 games. But I think you're seeing 2 really well coached teams, and it's just been, you know, if you're a basketball nerd, watching these 2 teams play is just brilliant. And that game 1, which obviously everyone's reacted to already in the podcast, well, but this is our first pod since that game, was absolutely mental. And you had the Bam Adebayo block right at the end to seal it. And I think there's now a Bam scale. Like I watched on the Lakers game, they were like rating blocks versus Bams. So I think that must be a thing going forward now. So
I think you should, as it goes up the scale, you should just get louder in how you say Bam.
Bam, bam, bam.
So bam. But yeah, no, that's just.
This is like an episode of the Flintstones.
Yeah. Bam, bam. Oh dear. The game last night. Did you see the pre-game interview with Duncan Robinson?
No, I didn't. I saw the halftime thing where they did the Lakers one where they did Ernie Johnson and Caruso. That was funny.
Oh no, I didn't see that one. But the pre-game interview was done whilst he was basically in the gym. He wasn't lifting weights, but he was doing like core strength and activation stretches and stuff. And he had these Beats headphones on, and he was talking. Oh God, I can't remember her name. The lady who does Rachel Nichols, who does the jump.
Yeah.
He was talking to her, and it was just really interesting watching someone. I thought it was brilliant. It was really bizarre. There was this guy getting ready for the game, and he's doing like all his, you know, TheraBand stretching and his planks and his sit-ups and sort of crunches, and he was just casually having an interview at the same time, and it was just an amazing bit of TV. And I just genuinely hope they continue to do it from now on throughout the rest of the NBA's life. It was brilliant.
I didn't see that. But I think that's what they carried on with Caruso, because Caruso had like little Beats headphones in and was shooting jumpers as he was like talking to Ernie, and they were comparing hairlines. You know how long it takes for them to grow hair. So it was to find it if you didn't see it. But I mean, Game 3, I think Miami's problem was that they were like 20 points down at one stage, and like we were saying earlier, you just cannot go down by that significant amount of digits. It causes you all kinds of problems. Brad Stevens should get a lot of credit for changing who was defending Goran Dragic. Kemba Walker spent most of the time on him in games 1 and 2, and Dragic was just, torching them 54 points, sorry, on 53% shooting. Like, that all changed once they put Marcus Smart on him in game 3, and he didn't have a good night then. And I think that's somewhere that they will have to start focusing on, because obviously the Heat are without Kendrick Nunn and some other guys at the moment, so they're just going to have to rely on a hot shooter or a streaky shooter each night, especially if someone like Jimmy Butler is, he can't do everything as much as he can. But I think the Celtics are one of those teams that's just got, with Gordon Hayward now back in the lineup, they look like they're a lot stronger, because you don't have someone like Semi Ojeleye standing in the corner because that's all he can do. Like, no offense, Semi Ojeleye.
Certainly they look more comfortable with the zone, I thought, and maybe it's just because I was more aware to it, that they looked like there was a lot more movement on elbow cuts and trying to get open there and moving the ball around, and then sort of driving through the seams and kicking out. It felt like there was a lot more of that. Yeah. It just, I don't know what it was. They kind of needed it. They needed that cathartic bust up after the last game to engage them. Like, this is the time to be fully, emotionally involved in this. If you're not there mentally now, then you're going to get beat. So shout out to Marcus Smart for putting a rocket up them.
I was just giggling at Nick's comment about Hayward angling for Pringles money. There is a meme going around about, it's him with the tash, and everyone's like, what character is he pretending to play from like Peaky Blinders? So I think Gordon Hayward's tash is amusing lots of people. Also, the gun show from him is serious right now.
I thought that. Yeah. Well, what else has he got to do? This is one of the things I love about the bubble.
He just plays video games all the time.
Eat, sleep, basketball, repeat. They're obviously not going to play now until Wednesday. How do you think that's going to impact them? Do you think it's going to take momentum away from the Celtics?
I don't know. I mean, I think this whole bubble scenario is just one of those things where each game is a game, and I think they're quite quick to just brush them off. Like, there's no home court advantage. It's completely erased. Like, you don't have the specific fans at each arena who would end up winding you up. There's no pre-game, the post-game showers. Apparently, they just go straight off to their rooms and change. Like, the whole scenario is just totally different. And I think that having a couple of nights off in the bubble is probably just a mental thing more than anything. It's just a case to sort of relax a little bit. But yeah, you could argue that they'll switch off a little bit. But I think if they want to win this series, they have to tie it up, I think, and then go from there and just take each game as live or die, really. There's no way Miami are coming into that game without, not concentrating. Jimmy's tried to fire a rocket up their ass already, as you were saying. Like, the comments in his post game were pretty like harsh, and he was calling out teammates already. So I think Jimmy Butler wants this, and he's going to force his teammates to help him get there.
So you went Heat in 6, but you're wavering on that now. What is there something you're leaning to?
No, I'm still thinking the Heat, but I think Gordon Hayward coming back, as long as he can play, he remains healthy, and that he isn't just going to, bust another ankle or something in the next 2 games.
Well, apparently he's not leaving the bubble now for the birth of his 4th child.
I saw that, yeah. So he's obviously thinking that he's the X factor in this Celtics comeback. So they do look a different team at the moment.
I want that conversation to have happened with his wife, where she just went,
"I'm not coming back.
It's fine." Because anyone who's got another half knows that when they say it's fine, it's not fine. And I just wanted to be like, no, she said it's fine. It's cool. I don't have to go home for the birth of my child. It's fine. We can do it. And then gets home and it's just hell. Man, I couldn't imagine missing the birth of a child. And I get, like, you don't know how many more times you're going to have this sort of opportunity. But, I mean, hey, well, maybe it's because it's a 4th kid that he doesn't mind as much. He got the 3-peat. The 4th one. There's a bit of
grow up one day and be like, you weren't there at my birth, I'm going to hold that against you.
I hope she names it after like a Heat player or something, just to spite him as well.
Why not?
Oh dear. Anyway,
I mean, I don't think anyone expected Hayward to be, that decent, considering he played one game. I think he played the opening game of the playoffs and then has been out since with that rolled ankle. So just to come back in and be like a facilitator, which is something they've needed, has helped them out a lot. But when he's on the court, they've just got 5 players who are going to cause you, they're going to cause you mismatches and problems. So I think that's what makes the difference with him being there. But yeah, again, I think Miami it was just a lapse of judgment. Like they fell behind too early, and that was it. They were just playing catch up ever since. And Duncan
They've done
Robinson
that
could have
before,
actually
though.
made it really close at the end if he hadn't missed those two free throws.
Yeah, but Miami Heat have the Miami Heat have fallen behind a few times already to the Celtics, and they've always come back. But again, it's like I said with Denver, the more often you do it, it doesn't get any easier to come back. Playing a team that's going to want to try and put you away, it's not easy. It's not rec league.
No. Right, moving on because we'll probably spend all day on these two. All NBA teams were announced at the week. When was that weekend? Saturday, I think it was. Can't remember. I had a bit of a problem this weekend because
Saturday is the weekend. Yeah.
As I was saying in the Slack chat, I went for a job interview on Friday and I just turned all my notifications off, so I didn't know what was going on, like in the world from anybody. And then I turned them on again this morning and realised I forgot to turn them back on. So that was an interesting weekend. I was kind of wondering why the Slack chat was so quiet, but there was only like 6 messages sent over the Slack chat over the weekend anyway, so that was probably why. But the voting was based on the regular season games played through to March 11th, so it didn't include any of the performances that we've seen in the bubble, in the regular season bubble, or in the postseason bubble. So I don't know. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do all NBA first team and then just roll through them?
Yeah, can do.
Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of weird lagging going on tonight.
Yeah, it's weird. The hamster's not turning fast enough in the wheel.
The wheel. He needs to work a bit harder. But the all NBA first team was Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, James Harden, Anthony Davis, and Luka Doncic, which was, that shows you the status of European players, I guess, at the moment. Second team was Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, and Pascal Siakam. And the third team, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons, and Russell Westbrook. So a really great representation from international players across all three first teams, which was great. Who got snubbed out of those all NBA teams? I mean, Darren asked us in the Discord, but I know that was something you wanted to talk about anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me to say there's been a snub, you have to sort of take someone out. I kind of, these were obviously the final point or day of consideration was, I want to say March the 11th, whenever the NBA stopped. It might have been the 11th, it might have been the 16th. No, it was definitely the 11th. 16th was the 11th, was Sunday. Yeah, 16th was a Sunday because that's when I booked my holiday, because apparently I can remember things like that and recall. That's really weird. Yeah, because we went into lockdown on the 17th, didn't we? Yeah. Random tangent. So, yeah, that was the last day when people could be considered. Or when their body of work should be considered. Siakam, for me, shouldn't have been over Tatum in terms of second and third team. That should have been the other way around. Don't know why Westbrook was in there. Right, I mean, he did go on a bit of a tear, but still, I just don't think
some sort of popular vote that goes on there with Westbrook and journalists. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, Bradley Beal should be on there. Like, his team didn't get any wins in the column, but that was a decimated team. And not only was he snubbed for the All-Star game, what did he put up? Like some stupid amount of numbers. First time in NBA history someone had put up the level of numbers he had and not
29 points. 29 points a game, 4 rebounds, 7 assists.
How he's not on an All-NBA team, I do not know. I keep checking it just to make sure I'm not wrong and I haven't just scrolled over his name or something.
Called playing for the Wizards, I think you'll find. Whoa.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, these are supposed to be informed, credentialed national media. If you're not following all 30 teams and up to speed with them, then you're not doing this award process any justice whatsoever. Beal should be in there. That's a huge snub.
Yeah.
I am, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd think if it was your full-time job to watch the NBA, you'd be able to at least catch one, all of the 30 teams every week or whatever. But I guess it's because the Wizards had a bad record that he didn't get any credit. Could you argue Devin Booker was perhaps snubbed? No, even though they had a great start to the season.
Yeah, they had a great start to the season, but that lasted 12 games. I think he was close.
I'm just getting in our regular Suns chat, you see, for Ross McLeod.
I don't think he was snubbed. No, I think he would have been had you included the bubble. If the bubble was included, he should have been second team at least. Probably first team.
I think the bubble would have thrown some other things in the air because you've had like DeMar DeRozan played really well with the Spurs throughout the regular season, and then in the bubble he was good as well. So you throw someone like DeMar DeRozan in there, but I don't know. There was some weird ones going out. Like somebody said Zach LaVine should have been in there, which
No.
I know he averaged 25 points a game, but he's playing for the Bulls for Christ's sake, and they're in the Eastern Conference. So
Well, hold on, that just completely destroys my Beal argument as well. But I honestly, I think Beal is another world up from Levine.
yeah, yeah. Beal's a guy that plenty of teams have been trying to get, whereas I don't think the demand for Zach LaVine has ever been that high. I could be wrong.
Well, it has been for a weekend in February once a year, and then that's it. No
Yeah,
one cares.
when your team gets all the social media highlights for a weekend.
Yeah.
There was other players who got votes and missed out: Chris Middleton, Paul George, Brandon Ingram, Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo. Brook Lopez got a vote on for third team, which was crazy. Karl Anthony Towns was in there as well. So
They should get rid of the positions on this as well. I'm sorry, but like, why are we forcing the positions still? You've got rid of them for All Star. Get rid of them for just make it front court and back court.
yeah,
Get rid of it for All NBA, because then I think we'd see a fair representation. I'm not even convinced AD would have made the first if it wasn't if it was positionless.
yeah.
And that seems really harsh because he has been excellent and was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But I don't know. Just get rid of the positions, please. Get rid of the group positions. Get rid of the conferences. Let's have total anarchy. That would.
Oh, bit of lag again.
It's all right.
Saw your face moving and it froze. It was interesting. Okay. Talking about total anarchy because that's the last thing I heard. Nothing but Nick's silly nonsense. This is a section dedicated to one of our contributors, Nick Whitfield. He asked us, how much credibility do you give the conspiracy theory, given both his appearance and otherworldly passing, that Nikola Jokic is in fact a precog? Individuals that possess psychic ability to see events in the future from the film Minority Report. What other movie characters do you think we have left in these playoffs masquerading as NBA players?
I think it's brilliant. I love this. I love this question.
So who's the Hannibal Lecter of the NBA?
So in terms of credibility, I can absolutely see this. Like, he looks like him. He, like Nick said, he looks like them. He has the psychic ability to see where players are. You know, we saw that beautiful over the head pass a couple of games ago from the elbow. He's also, I mean, look at him. We can all say he's pudgy the whole time. Maybe it's the fact that he was lying in that like bath thing they had for them for so long that his muscles are just atrophied, and you know it's difficult for him to get back in shape. So maybe that is another reason why he's a precog. I came up with a couple, but these are not great. But have you seen the film Dazed and Confused?
Yeah.
So Matthew McConaughey's character is a bit of a weird oddball. I've got two people for that. I've got Jimmy Butler, because he's just a weird oddball that a young Heat team are looking up to. And then I've also got Gordon Hayward, because there's something about that Tash, because it's come up again, that just makes me think that he could be that guy who just stands around. You know, and obviously he's quite different to the rest of the guys he's playing with in Boston as well. And then the other one I had, and I don't know why, but Dwight Howard to me would be fantastic as Eddie Murphy in Coming to America.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Dwight fancies himself as a bit of a movie star and a comedian as well, so I think he'd be well up for that one.
I'm glad they weren't completely like destroyed when I brought them when I presented them to you.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, and we're running out of time, so we'll have to move on to discourse on Discord. So Discord this week, discord.me/double clutch. Please come and join us. NBA 2K talk again, as there was
a lot of 2K talk
the previous week. Yeah, it seems to be the game at the moment. God knows what that'll be like when the new consoles come out, like when everyone's playing the next gen version of the game. I mean, I see people harassing Matt and the guys over at 2K UK all the time, saying when are we going to see the footage for the next gen game, because that's usually one of the the standout titles for new consoles. Another top topic has been podcast listening and how it's changed over the pandemic. About people listening to less and less podcasts. I mean, I would actually, Mo was saying that he'd listened to less podcasts, and I think Hugh was saying the same. I think everyone is this. It's strange how we've all got more. I guess we're all indoors more and we've got more time, but we're all not listening to as many podcasts as we were.
Your commute and your lunch break have gone.
Yeah.
For me, that's 5 hours a day. 2 hours commute in, 1 hour lunch break, 2 hours commute out. That's a lot of podcasts. Because it's easy to download them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of podcasts. So yeah, it's that for me has been the hardest obstacle. But there have been good alternatives. So more people are doing video stuff like, and I think that's probably the future. If we are starting to work more remotely, then I think podcasts as an audio only medium will continue to shrink. But I think if it's packaged where you've got a video aspect to it as well, then great. I mean, other people I know have started listening to podcasts because they've started going running, which is also great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one because like there was a time like I started podcasting in 2009, which is when I finished sixth form, and it was like the nerdiest thing you could possibly do was to have a podcast, and now it's like a general running joke if you ask someone on a date, have you got a podcast? Because like everyone seems to be doing something at the moment, and we've seen it like we've been doing an NBA podcast since July 2012, and like when we started there was nobody, and then throughout the years and more so like this last 12 months there's been shows popping up everywhere, especially in the UK. So it just shows you that the game that is considered niche by most is has a really hardcore enthusiastic audience over here, and that's why sites like us exist, is because we like, this is our weekly moment to come and talk about basketball, because I don't know about you, Mike, but nobody else in my office ever cares about,
Well, you're not in your office, are you?
Well, I'm not in an office at the moment, and
no one else in my house, certainly not my missus or my 2-year-old son, can hold a conversation on basketball.
No, well, it's just no, exactly. It's the same with me. So yeah, it's like it is your outlet once a week to come and do that, and then obviously listening to a podcast is your thing. But I found that Spotify are obviously spending big money on getting podcasts at the moment, so I don't think the media is going to like die out anytime soon. But I think video is obviously gaining more and more prevalence with YouTube and Twitch and platforms like that. So yeah, it's interesting how listening habits have changed over the pandemic. The other main point of discourse was actually the MVP conversation. Obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo won that during the week.
Slandered last week, by the way. Slandered.
I did not slander him.
Absolutely slandered him.
Well, you don't want to listen to Andrew Sharp on whatever the podcast was I had on earlier, because he was saying that Jokic has knocked Giannis out of the top 5, which was, shocking.
Well, you knocked him out of the top 5 last week. It's not that shocking. Don't try and hide behind Andrew Sharp.
If I'm on the same level as Andrew Sharp, then I'm obviously doing something right. LeBron James comments about being pissed off. He is pissed off. There's no point in reading it out because it just consists of him saying I'm pissed off every 5 seconds. But yeah, LeBron's pissed off. Do you think he has a reason to be pissed off, or is this the usual LeBron James? I didn't win anything, so I'm going to kick off, which he's done traditionally in the past. The one time I remember was 2011 when Derrick Rose won the MVP, and LeBron was like, "Well, I should have won it." LeBron's stats that year were considerably better than Derrick Rose, so he probably had a point, but still,
he did it with Steph as well.
Yeah, and James Harden.
So he's got a track record of it. If you want to win MVP, don't play with another top 5 player, or close to top 5 player. Yeah, simple as that. He probably is still the best all-round player in the league.
Yeah,
but his role has changed significantly. And yes, he led the league in assists, and yes, he's still capable of just smashing. It seems like he dunks more now, and they're always just these double clutch,
absolute killers.
Yeah, and it's just like his role's changed. He needs to accept that. And unfortunately, if you're not in a role that pulls everything out of you as much as possible, you don't get the story and the narrative to build up your profile. Like Giannis did it with fantastic stats this year, and his stats could have been higher because he was still only playing was he 30 minutes a game?
And they were winning, like you said last week, they were winning games easily, so they didn't need to play him for 4th quarters.
There are a lot of issues with the awards as they are. I got into a very respectful conversation and dialogue with our very own Josh Coyne just before the announcement, I think, actually. We talked about the timing of it and things like that. I do not think if it was done by March the 11th. They should have announced it at the restart.
Yeah.
In normal like normal seasons, it's done at the end of the regular season, and then they announce it throughout the playoffs. No, just announce it before the playoffs, and then just let the grudge matches appear. Because can you imagine if, by some magic, the Lakers had met the Bucks in the playoffs, and it was a battle of the MVP and the person who thought that crown was his?
Should have been his. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, look, Giannis this season did the whole, when they beat the Lakers, the putting on of the crown, like he was, I'm taking this from you. That things like that would make a great series even better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And every year we end up having a debate about what most valuable player actually means, because everyone has different opinions of what it means. And certainly when it was the Steph Curry, James Harden race for what, that was 2-3 seasons, I seem to think. And then you had Russ jump in there with the fact that it looked like he was, well, say looked like, he was definitely stat padding those seasons. And that seemed to count as a bonus for him. So I think the awards do need to have, to be looked at, and then maybe just announce them at the end. I guess announce them at the end of the season or something, and then include playoff performances as well. I don't know. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it that way. I kind of like the idea though of doing its regular season, then creating some beefs for the playoffs, and then doing something similar for the playoffs. Maybe just before the season starts again, to give people a target on their back.
Yeah, no, you could do that. We've got 10 minutes left. Discord listener questions.
Oh my God, we've got 10 minutes to do all of those.
10 minutes to do all those, which were, yeah.
But thank you to Ginger Shack and Darren L for sending in a bunch of questions.
The first one we got was from Harry Harrison, who's contributing to the site at the moment. Based off the conversation in other chats, should the Los Angeles Clippers look for a new coach? And if so, who? D'Antoni, Brett Brown, someone else? Thoughts? Is this because Doc Rivers has got a terrible record and he's up 3-1 in series?
Should they get rid of Doc Rivers? I don't think they should. I think this is, again, recency bias. It comes in a lot. He was being praised a few months back for what an excellent coach he is. There is something that needs fixing. He's commented already that the intelligence level of the team wasn't where it should be. So, okay, shots fired there. It's an interesting one. I don't know. If you're asking a new coach to come in, that's a big gamble, given that it's the final year of Kawhi and Paul George's potential stint with the Clippers. But at the same time, if you don't think Doc can get you over that line, and you can't get a different set of players in to build around this core of two, then you need to find someone else who does something slightly differently. I mean, he's been there a number of years now, and I get this is a totally different team, but there is sort of a level of atrophy. I've used that twice now on this podcast, where if you've been somewhere long enough, it just sort of becomes stagnant.
Yeah. Although the roster's totally different from those teams in the past, so you can also argue that it should be a totally different sort of atmosphere there. But I guess because Doc's got his hands in all the pies in the Clippers organization, it's probably still very similar.
I would love to see how D'Antoni handles someone like Kawhi. That would be amazing. Just like a guy who doesn't care about defense and a former defensive player of the year who doesn't talk.
Yeah.
Just how are they going to coexist for a season? That would be really cool.
Yeah, it's strange because Kawhi's obviously gone from Toronto, where you have all these guys you've brought into him being the lone guy, and the respect level that he garnered playing in San Antonio with Greg Popovich, and he goes into the system where he's playing with Paul George, who has Paul George was on the cover of NBA 2K once. That seems like 20 years ago. He was the
three covers back, wasn't it? Was it 17 or 18? 18,
17, I think.
18 was Kyrie. It was 17. You're right.
He was like the next big thing, and that never sort of progressed anywhere. So I don't know. There's also this stupid stuff you see on Twitter about it being a Clippers curse, and I don't take anything.
Clippers curse is real though. read the book by Mick Minnis. That's real.
You interviewed him. I remember that. That was a while ago. Blimey.
Yeah.
Next one. What do we think of the Jumpman logo appearing on all statement jerseys? I think
Love it.
Ginger Shack.
Love it.
Love it.
Ginger Shack. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Will we miss the bubble vibe when it all ends?
100%.
Yeah.
The off-court content you get is sublime. and that'll all disappear when normality resumes.
Yeah.
And it's nice not having like Chris Webber was saying that he missed like people descending, the mascots flying down from the ceiling and the fireworks and the crowd. No, I don't. I enjoy the
It's pure
basketball.
basketball.
It is pure basketball. So this is great. None of the gimmicks, no popcorn being thrown, no one like pretending to wrestle a mascot. No one, get rid of all that. It's fine. Like it is fun for families, makes it a family entertainment thing, but
Yeah. It's the glitz and the glamour and the showbiz that is the NBA, and then the other sports all have taken it, I guess. It will, as much as I love the bubble, like it would be nice to go back and have arenas and crowds, and like that AD shot the other day in the Staples Center would have been totally next level. Like they might not have had a roof on the Staples Center after that game winner the other night.
But it didn't impact the players. Look how the players reacted. They still lost their shit.
Yeah, Taylor Horton Tucker or whatever got absolutely leveled. Did you see?
Yeah, I did. And then I saw Morris shove someone, and it looked like Rondo. And it looked like whoever he shoved did not want to be involved in it whatsoever. And he sort of shoved him. He was like, yeah, and then just went, oh no, you don't want to be part of this. Okay, that's fine.
That was the thing I forgot to mention earlier. Is you had that celebration, and Dwight Howard, instead of celebrating, was just yelling at the Denver Nuggets bench. And there's all reports online about like Jokic's like fitness coach or whatever was yelling back, and like Dwight was just pissing everybody you could possibly piss off, like when they won that game at the end there. So that was amusing. But yeah, I would definitely miss the buzzer. I'll miss the sideline cam as well. That's amazing. There's no way in hell they're going to take out those seats in like the Staples Center or the Garden to fit a camera.
Maybe they could flatten the rows, so instead of them being like this, because obviously or keep them the same distance, but do that so the camera sits underneath the seat and you're like sat up. That's a really weird, like seeing myself doing that. Actually, it's just. But maybe they could do something like that where the seats are at more of a equal level. Because I mean, you don't need to be looking over someone sort of knees to the back of their head sort of height. So maybe.
It's also we've seen some really crafty plays because of how much more room you've got when it comes to inbounding the ball. Who is the best player on the double clutch roster? Well, I don't play, so it's not me. I'll leave this one for my I'm nodding that way. There you go. My esteemed colleague to answer. As a veteran
not seen anyone play.
Yeah, when's the double clutch five on five? I nearly said five aside then. Sorry.
I'd probably say it's Lee Emtage. He's tall, athletic. I've seen video of him dunking,
and he's a lawyer.
Shoot. The
dude's just got everything.
Yeah, so he's a lawyer, so he's cutthroat on the court. And yeah, he played at a pretty decent standard over here. So yeah, I'm going to go with Lee.
Lee, there we go. Is Eric Spoelstra underrated as a coach?
Maybe he's been rated.
He certainly
very
was
highly.
When, like Miami.
He's been a top
five there.
Yeah, so when he first got to Miami and they were sort of vying for that first chip, everyone sort of said he was overrated. Then as LeBron, yeah, and then when they won the rings, it was like, well, okay, but you've got LeBron. And then when they stayed relevant after LeBron left, he's been a top 5 coach for a number of years now.
Yeah,
and I think that's where he is. He's an excellent coach. Interestingly,
he makes the Heat compete even when they haven't got a good roster. Like they'll still compete with the best teams.
His dad was once traded for 2 weeks. And this is a true story. His dad was not an NBA player. He was a marketing executive at the Portland Trail Blazers, and Indiana traded a player for 2 weeks with the marketing executive.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's a phenomenal story.
Can you imagine teams trading marketing executives now, or like digital teams? Like
it's mad, absolutely mad. It's an incredible story.
That would be mental. Everyone would like the Timberwolves' value as a team would go up through the roof because their marketing and social guys are like the best. So all of a sudden, you have
Sacramento Kings as well.
Yeah, you have to factor in how good their social media teams are with their players.
Dallas Video. We should do an all NBA media team, so you can have like the Dallas Video team and put those fantastic little bits.
That's a great idea. Nobody steal it.
That's what we need to
do. Last question: which team would Ron Burgundy be the best fit for? New York Knicks? No, is that too obvious? Just a comedy show all the time.
I don't know. It's all style and no substance. So yeah, probably the Knicks. Who else is all style and no substance? You could, people, the way
Charlotte
Lakers
Hornets.
back, yeah. The way the Hornets the Hornets, the Lakers are reacting to the Clippers loss. You could say the Clippers, but I think Clippers is probably too good a standard in the first place for Ron Burgundy to exist.
I'd
But
love it if he came in and they won a
who was
chip
Paul Rudd's
first.
character?
It's been a while. I don't know.
Because if his shooting percentage is anything like the Sex Panther perfume, works every time, 60% of the time or whatever it was, then that's a pretty good effective field goal percentage from my perspective.
Right, before we close, we would normally do games of the week, but there's not much point in doing that at the moment. We gave our Eastern Conference Finals predictions last week, so I thought what we'd do is just give our Western Conference Finals predictions this week. I'm going Lakers 4-1. I think the Nuggets will get a game.
Yeah, I was tempted to say 4-2, but I don't think the Nuggets will actually get two games out of this. 4-1, I would agree with you.
Yeah. And obviously you picked Heat in 7 last week, and I picked Heat in 6, so we'll see what
that was
happens.
so good as well. We did it in unison.
We did. It was funny as well because like everyone else was taking the Celtics in our channels by the looks of it. So, but maybe that's because we live around 100 Celtics fans in the double clutch world.
Yeah, true. But if we'd have done it and it come out with exactly the same result, I was ready to drop the Step Brothers. Did we just become friends?
Oh, we could have done that. Thank you everyone who's tuned in on Twitch tonight. We've seen a few of you in the chat, and we've obviously engaged with you as we've been doing this. Please check out the Twitter at Double Clutch UK, and obviously Instagram and Facebook. Follow us and subscribe to the podcast. If you like the podcast, please do review us on your audio-based platform. I think Apple Podcasts is the only place where you can actually review things, but it does help. It actually pushes you up the like the charts and gets you noticed and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else to say. I mean, articles wise, we've been a bit quiet this past week, haven't we? Really? So
no, in fact, we've had one go up from Harry, haven't we? On
did that go off on the 14th? That was a while ago.
Was it? Oh, the days all blurring. That was a week ago. But shout out to Darren L for joining the Discord as well. Always good to meet new people who also share a keen interest in basketball.
Indeed. And yeah, if you haven't already, like we were saying, please join Discord. We want to get over 100 at some point in the next couple of weeks. So get there. Sticking my thumbs up on an audio-based podcast is probably not going to work, but yeah.
We're video, mate. It's on Twitch.
It's been, hopefully my positioning is a bit better this week. So yeah, there we go. Catch you next week, guys. Thank you very much.
See ya.